Good evening and welcome to Slam the Gavel, the show that tells it all regarding family court, other court issues, as well as CPS. I am your host, Marianne Petrie. Bradley's mother, Narcus Golan, passed away in the fall of 2022. Bradley is autistic and needs structured routine and therapies he receives for his autism 6 days a week. However, Italy just entrusted Bradley to the Italian Social Services. If he is ruled to go back, he will face the next 3 to 4 years in the Italian foster care system where he can't speak or understand the language. He will then be taken away from the only family he has ever known. Please call Governor Hochul, New York State, 518-474-8390. That's Governor Hochul at 518-474-8390 to please keep Bradley here safe in these United States. Hashtag keep Bradley safe. Then go visit the site, pleasedoyourjob.com. We need 2,500 more signatures to get a very, very important case reopened. That's pleasedoyourjob.com. I am so happy to have Laurie Smith back onto my podcast. She was last on season 3, episode 170, season 4, episode 37, 75, and 153, where we had spoke about her 2 new webinars and the illusion of justice, but justice for who? But today we're going to talk about maintaining our own well-being, especially after the holidays, and working with what you got. So I totally welcome you, Laurie, back to my podcast. I'm so happy to have you on. I was looking forward to this for a long time.
Thank you so much, Marianne. I'm excited to be back. We've been doing this over a year now and
Oh,
sporadically,
yeah.
and you've been on mine. So it's been really useful, and I'm excited to come back to your audience.
I am very happy to have you on. Having you on is like a therapy session even for me.
Awesome. Cool. Well, hopefully it'll be, helpful for audiences. And I do like to give some free services sometimes.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, and you've also written a new book too that we're going to talk about. And
Yes.
we have so much to go over, like maintaining your well-being. Like after the holidays, some people are just so glad to get them over with, like some people like the build up before the holidays more stressful. And then when
Yes.
Christmas lands, it's like, okay, it's like acceptance. And then the day after, it's like, glad that's over.
Yeah, and that collective energy is just so fascinating to me. I have studied people and human behavior since I came out of the womb, I swear. I am autistic, this is my hyper focus. And so
Yeah.
this year being autistic and being aware of the sensory overload, and again, if you're struggling with some chronic stressors like a court case or sort of relationship issues within your family,
Mhm.
the holidays are can we just be real? They're amazingly overly abundant, but also they're very viscerally uh assaultive to some of us
Mhm.
because of the circumstances we're in. So it's an exhausting time, but there's all this pressure collectively that just builds. You got to buy. You got to stress. You got to plan. And then the winter solstice comes, which is beautiful.
Mhm.
And we all take this collective sort of sigh.
Mhm.
Ah,
Yeah.
the new year, we have more light, and now we can redirect that energy collectively. And now everybody's setting goals or not, and just it's a new year, let's have some hope. So it's just this really powerful time every year that I look forward to, and I also just study it. It's fascinating. It's just this wave of pressure and then release.
Right. Right. Yeah, I just had a parent tell me that, "Oh, I'm just dreading Christmas. This is horrible. It's
Right.
stressful." But then and then she told me, "Well, Christmas came and I was okay that day." And then the
What a
day after,
gift.
yeah. Yeah, it's and I totally understand all of that. Believe me, it's
Yeah.
in fact, you and I were talking earlier and I said, I even hate to wish people, have a Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays because they're not going to. I didn't know if I was going to.
Right. But here's the beauty of that. First of all, Christmas is a very historically, we, before religions got in here, we were celebrating the change of the season. These days are nothing but an illusion. Okay, yes,
Mhm.
some religions celebrate sort of the birth of Christ and all of that, but we can also again utilize that spiritually. This is a sort of a birth happening in our lives of a birth of energy, a birth of new hope, a birth of, we can make the meaning mean whatever we need to survive. It can be as benign as just another day of the week, and it can be as celebratory as, meaningful rituals and all of that. That's the beauty of working with what you have, is that you get to do it in a way that freaking works for you, or you just won't survive. Like, it needs to be in a way that works for you.
Mm-hmm.
So I've celebrated Christmases from afar. I've been alone on holidays.
Mm-hmm.
I have ignored the holidays. I've stayed in bed. Some of the holidays I've been drunk all day.
Mm-hmm.
Like, whatever you need to do to get through that, it is just essentially another day, and it can mean as much or as little as you need it to be.
Well, I'm glad you said that because when I was a nurse, you had to work every other holiday. So they kept a logbook of who's going to
Right.
work. So it's like Christmas to me, at least when I had my issues with these destructive child abusive judges, um, it's like, well, he's going to have the kids on Christmas all the time because I had a no contact order. But it was like, okay, well, I'm kind of used to that because I'm going to work the holiday anyway.
Right. Right. And also going in on the holiday, there's so many people that have to work, period, on Christmas,
Yes.
which is not, I won't even get into that discussion, but you get a you I think we're so attached to the meaning of Christmas and families and what that should look like and what it should mean, that we get so distracted by our expectations.
Uh-huh.
But when you're like, say you're working in the ER on that day, you go in and there's every person in that room has a different life history, a different life experience of this day. You get a little bit of a reality check, like, oh, yes, there is still life going on. It
Mhm.
doesn't mean that life has crumbled because I can't celebrate in front of a tree with my kid today. Like,
Right.
it can mean that, but it doesn't have to mean that.
Right. And and when I went into the ER and I saw things and I'm going, okay, I'm glad that's not happening to me.
Right.
There's
Exactly. And yeah, like, and I think, again, we are so, with capitalism and everything, we're so accustomed to believing that Christmas has to look a certain way, and then we have that intergenerational trauma. Well, Christmas celebrations have to look a certain way. Fuck that.
yeah.
That can be useful, but it's not the end of the story. And here's where I'm going to say it's time to take your power back. You get to have a say in this story. There's so many things you don't have a say in things like chronic court cases and chronic child custody and disagreements and all of those. There's so many things you don't have a say in, that to not honestly take account of the things that you do have a say in is both innocently setting ourselves up to fail, but also a little bit innocently neglectful towards our own needs,
Right.
if that makes sense. Like,
Yes.
it's okay to check in with yourself and ask yourself what you need. It's okay to have your week not look like it's supposed to look or how it should look. It's okay to be in your bed for a day or two if you need to, because it's so difficult to get through. It's physically exhausting to metabolize stress chronically. That is why we are all in a state of survival mode.
Mm-hmm.
Go out for a walk.
Mm-hmm.
Go get your own. How do you get into your own alignment? Do you take a break? Do you listen to certain music? Do you, I had to take many breaks this season. I go into my room for 5 or 10 minutes. I put on certain playlists. I take all the lights off. I I have that choice. The world does not have more power than I have. The world does have power. I am being impacted by the power and assault on me, but I will not continue that harm by harming myself further by neglecting my own needs.
Oh, well
That is
said.
that is not work that I'm going to give you for fucking free.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I have a right and I have a responsibility to check in with myself and ask myself what I need today. That is the act of rebellion, because innocently, the rest of the world isn't really invested in our well-being.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We've set it up that way. We've set it up that way to be just another number in the court system, to be erased in our stories of what is happening in our lives in terms of like all of these court cases and all these child custody and divorce, all that. This isn't on nobody's public radar on purpose,
Mm-hmm.
because if it was on our radar, we'd actually have to look at the root causes, and nobody wants to do that.
Mm-hmm.
for many, many reasons. But one of the things I do want to ask us to look at is our own needs, because nobody else is checking out to see if our needs are being met. And that is something we have a right and responsibility to reclaim.
Definitely. And I know some people have been, whether it's a family argument or some court issue, it could be, you're fighting with your kids or whatever. Sometimes it gets so draining, you don't even want to do your hobbies anymore.
Right. And that's fair, because we are going to have those low pressures. But I equate this to somewhat of a chronic illness. I worked with chronic illnesses for over 10 years. I was a certified diabetes educator. I worked in healthcare as a care manager. Chronic illness does have a say in the level of relationship we have in the world that day. Okay. So the chronic stressors have a say in the level of ability, fatigue we have. It has a say in a lot of things. But what it doesn't have a say in is our ability to internally keep and maintain our own wellness. That is not in the purview of a court system. That is not in the purview of a chronic illness. I may have chronic back pain today, but I get to decide how much of life I'm going to be involved in based on that. I get to decide if I have limits. I get to learn how to pace myself and take breaks from the chronic stressors. And that's sort of, so I would equate that with the chronicity of these court cases. Yes, there's court dates. Yes, there's, when I was in my court case, which is not a child custody case, but 5 years of this ridiculous policy-based nonsense, I had to go through so many legal jargon. It's so overwhelming. That's going to take up all my spoons. I'm not going to have the time to be social with somebody later. I'm not going to have the time or capacity to be nice to somebody when I get done reading and go to Walmart and you're late with my prescription and there's 4 people in line and you're all being assholes. Like, I'm out of spoons by that time.
Right.
So I need to know that maybe I don't go to Walmart when I'm done reading my court documents. Maybe I need extra downtime after I use all that emotional expenditure. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So, and that's what I'm saying. That is the rebellion. It doesn't look pretty. It looks like missing work. It looks like saying no to family functions. It looks like doing unwanted habits sometimes. But this isn't about anybody else's survival but your own. Can we just be honest about that? And that, I was also indoctrinated into AA for over a decade, and it really, really re-traumatized me in ways that I don't think people realize that the depths of historical intergenerational trauma coming into those rooms and how it gets dealt with in the rooms. Anyway, so one of the things, well, you're selfish, self-centered, and self-seeking if you take care of your own fucking needs. And excuse me, that was true for 1930s adult middle-class men who were out cheating on their wives and developing AA. Okay, that was true then for them. I am a woman, bisexual, neurodivergent, CPTSD. I have my own life and sort of knowledge, skills, and experience, life circumstances happening. That model didn't fit for me. And so unlearning that I'm selfish because I meet my own needs, that is a rebellion in a world that says you need to put other people first. Now, hear me out. We have a relationship with the world. Yes, we are interrelational. I do need to take into account how my actions affect other people, for sure. But if I'm being harmed and assaulted, I will not let other people's needs take trump over my own when I need to figure out how I need to survive. And that's really important. That's not taught on purpose. So I'm just countering this whole idea that it's selfish to call into work because you don't have energy today, or it's selfish to somehow say no to a family function when your life is fucking flipped upside down and you're living in a twilight zone that makes no sense and you have no frame of reference for this because this is something that you never saw coming in your life. It's okay that we are a hot mess sometimes.
But then some people walk into family, like they're going through this horrible hot mess. And then they're invited to a family function, say it's Easter time, and then you go in there and you're not prepared for, like you don't see things coming or what questions people may ask you.
Yeah, which is also can be re-traumatizing.
Mhm.
If I'm going, if the purpose of going to the family function is to take a break and have family time,
Yeah.
and it's like somebody who's died in my family. Well, how are you doing? Are you eating enough? Do like, oh, is she mad today? What mood? Like everybody's eyes are on you, which can absolutely defeat the purpose of going in the first place, because now we have to answer all those questions that actually innocently violate our own boundaries, but we don't have the words to say that. And it's socially conditioned that we have to, like, it's just this mess of uh playing in our own fertilizer, so to speak.
Mhm.
I If that's too much, it's okay to say no to those things. And also, like, come up with a one word or a one sentence response to shut that conversation down. If you're
Mhm.
not comfortable talking about how things are, I say it all the time. Oh, I'm surviving. I'm getting through. It's just another day. Whatever you need to check yourself so that
Mhm.
you're not violating your own boundaries with that conversation.
Right. You can say just another day in paradise, or I'm living
Right.
the American dream.
Yeah. Or I'm here today to focus on the Christmas party, or I'm here today to work. I don't have the spoons or capacity to talk about that today. Again, part of this is communicating our needs, which I dare say in a lot of these cases, we didn't really we knew that we knew something was not good, but we didn't listen to our gut. And
Mm.
so, then we kind of like, here we have this ball of yarn, but it's okay to step back. It's okay to engage in life at whatever level you are able, but honestly assess your own capabilities that day.
Mhm. Right, and some people, I found even with myself was I couldn't do that. I was so sucked up into this
Right.
horrible thing I was going through. It's like you can't think for yourself.
Well, it's brain fog, and that's
Right.
exactly why I named my company Clouded Compass, because I all of these things come in and they cloud our own navigation system. We are out of alignment with our own north. Our compass is like just swirling in this chaos of madness, which we can't make sense of. This holiday season was really, really difficult for me because of the Palestinian thing going on.
Mhm.
I could not. Whew, I could not enjoy the holidays while children and women and men are being bombed into decimation because of a land disagreement.
Mhm.
It was really heavy for me. I struggled this whole fall. I toned it down for the holidays. I don't have my own children. So, like, but I viscerally, because of my neurodivergence, I do, the energy in the room just like sucks me up. So, I had to limit my news watching. I had to sort of
Mhm.
take more breaks. I had to focus on the Christmas lights as opposed to the Christmas celebrations, because that was the level at which I could comfortably and capably function in life. But I said no to a lot of holiday events. And that, make no mistake, when you do meet your own needs, other people are going to have a reaction about that. That's
Mhm.
fair. They're allowed to. They even don't have to like it. But I'm the one that has to live with the consequences. So I better be doing what I need.
Mhm. Mhm.
And we all have that right and responsibility. Use what you've got. What are the things we're not looking at in these cases? What are unforeseen little glimmers that we can grab onto? They call them glimmers now in my fancy psychoeducation. Um, you were talking about this raffle that you were at, and how there just was this own sweet justice on the gifts that you had sort of won. And that's what I'm talking about. We can get so tunnel vision about the what is wrong in our lives. And there's a lot wrong. There's a lot that doesn't make sense. There's a lot that's unfair, and there's a lot that's assaultive. Absolutely. But
Mhm.
when you're looking at it up at the window with your eye to the window this close, you got that glass to the window, you can't see the bigger picture. And
Mm-hmm.
so if you just give yourself a diet of what's wrong, you will only start to see what's wrong. If we don't zoom out and take a step back, like one of my own tools is that I call it zooming out. I look at the world from like space. Like if I was looking at this problem from space, would it look the
Uh-huh.
same? What am
Mm-hmm.
I not seeing here? What are some other realities that I can tune into? This is just like a radio station. We're tuned into one frequency. Again, up at the window, we can only see the certain, oh my God, my life is ending because of this court case. Lots of things are dying in that situation, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that I can breathe today is something I will never take for granted again,
Mm-hmm.
because I have been suicidal. I have been in a hospital. The fact that I'm not in a fucking hospital today, I'm going to take for
Uh-huh.
granted. I may not be talking to my family, but I'm communicating my needs more this year, or um, I'm surviving a job on top of this court case.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody was nice to me at the grocery store, and I didn't factor in that somebody bought my meal at McDonald's when they didn't have to. These
Right.
little stranger demonstrations of the universal thread that connects us all, the relationship. If we're not taking that into account, we're not being very kind to ourselves, for one, but we're kind of setting ourselves up to fail, because we're only looking at the problem and not we don't have it on our radar to receive solutions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the solutions might come in ways that we're not expecting, in packages we're not expecting. Do I want people to have a relationship with their kids? Yes. But the court does not have the ultimate say on whether I love my child or not. Again, I don't have children, so I'm speaking from a parent sort of hat here. The court does not have, I don't need permission to have a ritual on my own where I take 5 minutes of my day and tune into my uh, um, child. They do this in Buddhism, actually. I can't remember what they call it, but there's a ritual where you sort of um, point your attention towards the world and send love. I think it's called the loving kindness meditation, but I could be wrong. I can take 5 minutes and I can have a conversation in my head with my child. I can write them a card. I can make um not a sanctuary, what's the word I'm looking for, where you like put all these things on a
Shrine.
table.
Shrine.
Yes, thank you. I can make a shrine and I can make connection with that every day. And if you think that doesn't make a difference, I'm going to ask you, well, I'll refer you to the research on energy frequencies and that study on water. They did a study on water, which sorry, I may be going off on tangents. Am I going too fast?
You're doing great. I love it.
Okay. So they did this study on water. I can't remember who did it, but they used different music for the
Mm.
water. And what they found was the water changed shape based on the different music that it was receiving.
Like the frequency.
Yes. So if you don't think the way that you're spending your energy and utilizing your energy matters, I think we really might want to recheck that. So I can energetically connect with my children. I can energetically send love to them. I can send love to myself. There's all kinds of affirmations and meditations out there. The question, I guess, would be, how did we get to the point where we innocently forgot about these free tools?
Right. Right.
This is where using what you got matters. These are free. Listen, nobody knows what conversations go on inside my head. That was so liberating to me, because now I can have an entire conversation in my head that I would probably be in jail for having verbally.
Same.
Or I can smile at you and wish you well and be on my way and send you a dose of love sort of as a buffer to your negative bullshit energy.
Mm-hmm.
Those are free tools. I can use my breath. I can do breath work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I can stimulate my parasympathetic nervous system by bilateral touching. I can do some tapping. There's all of these free resources that I talk about in my courses,
Mhm.
that this is, it's, first of all, it's free. That's why nobody's talking about them. But second of
Aw.
all, they're too easy. And when you tap into your power, that's a threat to these systems that don't directly want you to be harmed. The intention was right in the beginning, but the way that they're sort of like coming out in human form, which is how it always is, it just looks messy and it's unfair and all of that stuff. All of that's true. But I don't have to pay you a fine, and I don't have to pay a fine for using my breath to make sure I'm okay. Excuse me, that's my right and my responsibility.
Mhm. Mhm.
You don't get to own whether I talk to my daughter or not, or son. I may not talk to them physically, but this is no different than if we were sort of keeping a relationship with somebody who's passed. They have transitioned. They are no longer here in bodily form, but you don't think you can talk to their spirit. I've lived with indigenous cultures who say absolutely otherwise. And in fact, I'm named after somebody who passed at the age of 5 in a drowning. And now I'm taking that little spirit to the Scandinavian countries to go watch reindeer race.
Oh.
Her family was reindeer herders. She died at 5. I
Oh,
am named after this child. Anagachidok is my Yupik name.
cool.
I carry her with me. She lives on in me. I don't have to have the permission of the universe to have that relationship maintained. And to me, that is empowerment,
Mhm. Mhm. I
which
think
is what we lose track of.
right. I think a lot of people don't think about people that have passed on and to utilize them. Okay,
Yeah.
like for instance, I was trying to nail a saddle plate onto the back of my saddle, right?
Ooh.
And these
You ride
nails
horses?
I used to, I don't anymore. It's so sad.
Oh
Yeah.
boy.
I just can't do it anymore. But these nails are like they're like so minute. And so I got one in, I'm going, this is great, and this should go smoothly. The other one like flew across the room. And it's like, oh, how am I gonna find this? I gotta find it before the dog finds it, right?
Right.
So I'm on my hands and knees and going, St. Anthony, where is it? St. Anthony, where is it? And I vacuumed, thinking that would pick it up. And I'm going through that. For some reason, it wasn't there. And
Okay.
so I threw it in the trash and I'm going, oh no, because so then I went back to the store and they said, well, in order to get another nail, you have to purchase another nameplate. Like, I don't feel like spending another $20 on that. So,
Right.
I said, St. Anthony, where is it? And so trash can came into
I
my,
love it.
I went through the
Yeah.
trash can, whether I liked it or not, and I found the stupid thing.
Yeah. And that, again, it's so underutilized. We have an entire lineage of people who have survived things. Granted, they also probably gave us a shit ton of things we didn't ask for,
Right.
but but they also had strengths. I can utilize their strengths. I can open up that channel to have those conversations. I there's this in fact there's so many new therapies that aren't really new therapies. They're actually ancient traditions that are coming back in on play. But these are resources that are free.
Right.
If I My dad has passed, and every about once a quarter, the grandfather clock that he left me starts swinging again.
Cool.
I can have conversations with him on the daily if I need to. He is not a lost resource. He's a resource that looks different,
Yeah.
but I can still tap into that.
Oh, definitely. Even when my mother passed, and we kind of didn't get along towards the end, but whatever. My one of her friends said, talk to your mother, and tell her to
And
help you with
yes,
something.
invite her.
And yeah, and I did. And things started moving along better. So
You
is
know,
that odd?
and I will say too, also, I've noticed a lot in my sort of work that people in the human form are messy humans. But when they sort of like transition into that other world, whatever you want to call it, the accessibility and the ability and the capability of them helping you in a much more holistic and profound and effective way, it clear cuts the human bullshit. We all have a human skin on. We all have human roles. We all have human suffering, and that interacts. And, while you could have had a very negative relationship with an ancestor, they're so much more available to help you in a healthier way wherever they are doing whatever they need to be doing right now.
Right.
And
Right.
so it can be healing to tap into that as well.
Mm-hmm.
But again, this is not just dead people. This is people who have metaphorically the relationship that I had with my daughter, maybe before she went in foster care or before this divorce or whatever. Just because it looks this way in human form doesn't mean that I can't have a relationship with them as defined by me in the way that's defined by me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that is a buffer, but it's also, again, that's empowerment that no system
Mm-hmm.
can impact.
Definitely. And this empowerment, people aren't realizing how strong it can be. Um, for instance, I was dealing with a very narcissistic judge who was BFFs with the opposing attorney. I think you might know this story. But I mean, I was totally helpless. I even had two attorneys. I was helpless. Then I was pro se and I was really helpless. But then I said, okay, God, deal with him because I can't
Right.
get justice to go anywhere. And they're very happy I can't get 50-50 with my kids. And here everyone's pushing for 50-50. So, I don't know what they want, but God dealt with him because on March 2nd, 2015, he took my boys away. And that's when I really started praying. And I said, God, you deal with him. Deal with him. I give up. I don't know what else to do.
Yep.
So, I'm patient. 2 years later, on March 2nd of 2017, the judge died of pancreatitis. So people don't realize, you've got resources,
Right.
that you can be using.
Well, and I think again, it's very natural when we're in a fear state. I have actually have a
Mm.
webinar called the 4 F's that are effing up your day about fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. But it
Uh-huh.
really does, like, when we are in a state of survival only, we're not going to see the bigger picture because
Uh-huh.
naturally we're only supposed to be focused on survival. But
Mhm.
there's also a sort of, when we're in fear, there's this lack of trust, and which is fair enough because I would not trust the outside world. I don't I
No.
I don't trust that things are going to turn out in this sort of level of awareness, the human level of awareness,
Mhm.
because it's not going to look in the, like, I have so many expectations attached to what that's supposed to look like that I've stopped. I That's a whole art in itself, letting go of what the external world says.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I lost my train of thought. We were talking about empowerment and, oh, the judge. Yes. The trust, the lack of trust in the fear. There, we are all trusting something at all moments.
Mhm.
Whether I trust that the alcohol is going to numb me out tonight, whether I trust that I'm going to have food on the table, whether I trust that the judge is going to be fair or not, like, we decide where we put our trust. There is something greater, whatever it's called doesn't matter to me. I call it the universe. I don't need to understand this. I might need to for my own sort of like safety, like I might need to make sense of it, but I don't need, like, my spiritual awakening came in a padded room in a psych ward. Okay, after I tried to kill myself.
Mhm.
I will never do that much harm to myself again on behalf of somebody else who's hurting me. First of all,
Mhm.
first fucking of all. Second of all, that was the worst moment of my life. There's no way that I could have pre-planned or predicted that I would have this, like, lightning bolt spiritual awareness that since then has moved me forward for the past 5 years. I have 2 businesses, 2 books, a podcast. I mean, I could go on. It's not about what's happening in the external world. It's about how I'm relating to it and what I give you power over and what I claim my own power with. So, yes, I don't need to know how the judge is going to be handled. this looks unfair. It probably is in this world.
Mm-hmm.
All I need to focus on is how to ensure that I'm going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
How can I be okay even if? Not if I'm going to be okay, fucking how. How can I be okay? You had a heart attack in jail. How can I
Well,
be okay if I die? Sorry, go ahead.
oh, it was 5 months after jail, but it brought it on.
Okay,
But
so you went
I
to
was
jail
having
and then you had
chest
a heart attack.
pain. Yeah, I was
Right,
having major chest pain in jail. They didn't care.
right. How can I be okay? I've never read the book by Viktor Frankl from the Holocaust, The Man's Search for Meaning, but this man wrote a whole 400, 500 page book in a Holocaust, literally giving us directions. Now, we don't have to follow him. There's many people we could follow, many religions, but when we allow whatever we believe in to trump our own innate sense of security and right and wrong, we have to sort of notice when we're innocently giving our power away.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can pivot and we can focus that on empowering ourselves with an E, which is
Mm-hmm.
a buffer, it's a rebellion, it's a right, it's a responsibility. And oh, by the way, when I take care of myself, I am a better person in this world. And
Mm-hmm.
I am changing the energy frequency that I am giving and receiving. That I don't need to get a little bit woo-woo. I don't get a chance to talk about spirituality much in my, my therapy practice or my coaching. I talk about a lot more in my coaching, but again, these are the free resources that we have that nobody else has a right to and nobody can claim. And it's not if I'm going to be okay, it's how. How can I figure out how to be okay? And here's the beauty of that. I'm going to go on because now I'm on a tangent. If you think that you don't have adaptive skills to survive whatever life has thrown at you, please turn around and look at your history. It's probably been a shit show. It's probably been tragic. Fair enough. But did you survive 100% of the time? I'm not going to argue with 100% track record. I am going to look at that. I'm going to own it. I'm going to look at how I adapted to those circumstances, whether they were pathological or like whether it was a healthy coping or not. I'm going to look at the tools that I have used. I might repurpose those tools.
Mm-hmm.
I might pivot them, but we are adaptive creatures.
Mm-hmm.
Let's marinate on that. Everything we have faced in life, we have adapted through. I don't know how, I don't care how, but it's good fertilizer. The medicine is in the madness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I don't mean to be all Pollyanna-ish and paint this like things are going to turn out okay. No, they might not turn out okay in this sort of human world that we live in.
Mm-hmm.
Something may die. But if I'm not dead, there's hope.
Mm-hmm.
If I myself am not the dead, then I can adapt myself through this too. And get out of my way when I learn how, because then you're really going to be in trouble.
Oh, I love what you just said.
Right? Right.
Wow.
Right. You do not get to claim that in me. That is not yours to own.
Mm-hmm.
Life may not look how I expected. There's a whole process of grief we have to go through about that.
Mm-hmm.
But again, up at the window, looking in with our one eye, like zoom it out, honey, zoom it out. You did not come here to be killed metaphorically by
Mm-hmm.
these things. Maybe you will die in the process, but if you're still breathing today, we've got all kinds of tools that we can use to adapt through this.
Mm-hmm.
I just need to shift my focus. Not, I said that a little flippantly. I can shift my focus.
Mm-hmm.
I can start looking for the sort of the free things that are coming my way, the gifts that are coming my way. That is not negating that this is hard. That is not negating that this is a death in some ways. That is this is the resurrection. This is the crucifixion. This is the sort of the cross. This is my burden to bear. This is dying. And there are some things that can rebirth out of this, that I get a say in this time.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so well said.
I really have a hyper focus on reflecting back people's power that they do have, because there's so much in the world that continues to remind us that we're helpless, hopeless, powerless. That is true on some level of functioning. Yes, I'm helpless, hopeless, and powerless over a court order, over fines, over whatever. I'm helpless to maybe to some point, whether you put me in jail or not. You do not have my mind. You do not have my body. You do not have my ancestors. You do not have my knowledge, skills, and experience. And I can pull those in, and I'm going to adapt through this. And whether you like it or not, I will find a way to survive, or I won't. But I get to decide that too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Some things you don't have a right to own from me. And that's where I'm talking about, like, this isn't selfish
Right.
to lay a claim to the empowerment that we do have access to.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well said. I am so glad I had you on. And we were talking about that Bible verse that, like how I was rewarded at that stag thing. Okay. So I was looking it up, and I believe it's Psalm 23. David wrote that God has prepared a table before me in the presence of my enemies. And believe me, they were there. It's important to note that this table is set for two. Our enemy, the devil, is not intended to join us there.
And see,
Okay.
that's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
That you don't get a say over my relationship with a higher power. You don't get a say in my relationship with the universe. And how perfect that Bible verse that you just referenced, we in essence just had a discussion about without sort of knowing the specific Bible reference. But I follow Marianne Williamson very closely.
Oh,
She wrote,
yeah.
she translated A Course in Miracles, and the Course in Miracles talks about all of this Christianity in a very metaphorical, sort of higher level consciousness kind of thing. The point is, by the way, she's running for president. She has really good policies. Check her out, because she actually has real solutions. But these are all metaphorical. So we look at things like Christianity and Islam and Judaism, and we take it so literal,
Mm-hmm.
which is fair, because at the time maybe it was written literally. However, there's so much more we can glean out of that
Mm-hmm.
when we sort of look at it from a metaphysical level. And so when you're prepared, when there's a table prepared for you and your enemies are sitting there, but it's this is between you and your God.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have control over that. That is the buffer. That is the empowerment. That is the juice that we can use to nourish ourselves through these experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And the world is going to look like the enemies are at our table. Okay, that's one version of reality. At the same time, I can tell you, there's actually Byron Katie talks about the work, which is another resource. It's 4 questions. Is this true? How do I feel when this is true? Are there other truths I'm not seeing? Is there another one I want to pick from here? Again, when we're zoomed up, when we're looking at it from this close to the mirror, to the window, we can't see our own reflection. We can't see the bigger story. We can't see the before and after. Fair enough. Just remember, or consider, like, zooming out and looking at the earth from space. Is that the only story here?
Mm-hmm.
What story is my brain gnawing on and convinced is the only truth? Half the time, that's informed by the bully in our head,
Mm-hmm.
by the person in our head saying, well, you failed at life. You did this wrong. You fucked this up. You messed this up. Why are you so stupid? Here we are. This was all going to happen anyway because you're so useless. I don't know if that's what yours says. That's what mine has said.
That's what, yeah, me too. Yeah.
So, but we just don't notice the nuance of the roots of that story. Like, is that even my story? Where did I get the idea that I have failed if I've actually had a marriage with somebody and we had love at one time and it lasted this long? Where did I get the idea that this is only my fault, that this is only my failure? Come on.
Yeah.
Where did I get the idea that a judge determining my custody with my children is the say all of my relationship with my child? No,
Mhm.
no. Sorry, somebody birthed that child. Somebody gave the sperm to that child. We have a connection that is untouchable.
Mhm. Mhm.
Get a little passionate. I'm going to use my breath to regulate myself.
Oh.
I could speak about this all day, but yes, the Bible verse was very, very perfectly
Okay.
not accidental that we talked about that in this whole podcast.
That's wild. Well, I want to have you back on, but tell me about this book that you have written.
Yeah, so I've written a couple.
Nervous
Like,
about the
yeah.
nervous system.
So the first one was life hacks. I wrote based on the three principles, which is a spirituality that I follow. And then this next one is an ebook, like 100 pages. Nervous system dysregulation. It's navigating the storm within, cultivating growth and resilience through nervous system regulation. And so it teaches us about our nervous system and how, again, these free tools that we can use to sort of regulate ourselves so that we can hear our own internal compass, our own gut instinct talking to us, so we can realign with our own north. I have courses that teach us how to find our own north if we're not clear on that. Like, and what I mean by that is what are our own values? What are our own core beliefs? What values do I want to take into my future? What do I want to sort of let go and leave behind? Just getting very clear on our own direction, because the world will have us spinning that the compass is never going to be facing north in a world that
Mhm.
is designed to distract us from it.
Mhm. Mhm.
So the book is about getting back into sort of how can I tap into my own resources and get my own nervous system back online. I've got the 4Fs course. I've got an imposter syndrome course. I've got a mind reset course. I've got 12-week uncovery course, which is really about uncovering all the clouds of the human life
Mhm.
and discovering your own assets and resources. And I have the podcast, Cloud and Compass podcast. And
I
I'm going to start talking about my own experience as a professional with compassion fatigue, moral injury, institutional betrayal, and how that impacted my own life and my own trauma and my neurodivergence. So I am neurodivergent as well. I mean, I've got a whole playbook, but it's because I've experienced all these things in my own life as well.
Now, how can people find your podcast?
So it's called Cloud and Compass Podcast. Thank you for asking. It's on all of the major platforms, but I also have a link tree, which I'm going to send you.
Okay.
And I have TikToks that I do sometimes, but the link tree has all my resources. So to
Yeah.
clarify, I am a therapist and I do have a private practice.
Mhm.
That's one hat I wear. We are talking about my coaching resources, which expand the things that I'm able to talk about and my ability to talk about them in different ways. Therapy is based on pathology and diagnosis. My coaching is based on empowerment and your own sort of knowledge, skills, and experience. And I continue to point those back to you and help you build your own roadmap
Awesome. Now, how can people find your ebook?
on my link tree, which I'll send you.
Okay, great. I'll put that in the podcast notes, but
Yeah, thank you. And
I'm
you've got
s
some books too, which are, again, those are resources that we can tap into, building a community, networking, all of these things. The courts don't have a say over this.
no,
Your ex does not have a say over this.
no. Oh, man, Laurie, you're awesome. I am so glad we had this conversation, and I'm gonna
Thank
have you
you.
back on again, but hey, don't jump
Thanks.
off.
Yeah.
Um,
And you know what? Also, I'm going to add one more thing. If your
yeah.
audience has questions, like they can send them to you and we can talk about that on future podcasts and
Oh,
stuff too. So
yes.
or, whatever, like I just want to be a resource and a tool um, to
Yeah.
be used however somebody feels that they need to use that.
Okay, I'll put that in the podcast notes to send us future questions. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Well, hey, Slam the Gavels, a podcast, help the public understand what really goes on in these family courtrooms. I am your host, Marianne Petrie, author of Dismantling Family Court Corruption, Why Taking the Kids Was Not Enough, Cry Out for Justice, Poems of Truth, and Raised by These Wolves, How Family and Federal Courts Are Failing Our Children. You can find me on Spotify, YouTube, Apple iTunes, Anchor FM, iHeartRadio, other platforms I don't even know about. And please feel free to buy me a coffee to support this podcast. And I thank you,
Yes.
Laurie Smith. You are amazing. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you for your work with people.
Thank you.